So I think this is the fourth video that we're doing for polity. First, we had covered, I think, federalism. Then we covered judiciary, and then we covered parliament. And today we'll cover elections. For 2024, elections become extremely important for two reasons. One, we did not have a question 2023 on elections at all. So that being first, and the second being we had a general elections, Lok Sabha elections this year. So most probably there's an expected questions about elections. But when you're talking about elections, like as we discuss in every lecture, some of the couple of things that you keep ready at one place at one go, so that becomes a fillers for any question for elections is first the constitutional articles. 324, 325, 326, 327, 328, and 329. Majorly this extremely important. This talks about through what? It establishes the Election Commission of India as the constitutional body. And through Election Commission of India, free and fair elections is envisioned. But it's basically Election Commission of India 324. 325 and 326 more or less talks about the same thing. 326 is for universal adult suffrage. And 325 talks about there is no discrimination in electoral roll. So this mostly talks about right to vote. So right to vote is a constitutional right, but not a fundamental right, because this does not come under part 3 of the constitution, but since it's explicitly mentioned in the constitution, it's a constitutional right. 327 and 328 talks that the parliament or the state legislature can make election laws, including the delimitation laws. And 329 talks about that the Delimitation Commissions Act or the Delimitation Commission's report and their judgment and everything cannot be questioned at the bar or by the judges. So that's final and cannot be even discussed at the parliament. Majorly 320. So if you're getting a question Election Commission of India or you're mentioning Election Commission of India, it goes without saying that you mention 324. And if you have no idea about conclusion and it's an election question, you can, like, the fundamental thing behind Indian elections is that it has to be free and fair. That's the basic ethos of Indian elections. So if you don't know anything, just write as envisioned in Article 325 and 326. With respect to universal adult suffrage, everybody has a right to vote, and such free and fair election is a basic goal that has to be fulfilled. So this is the basic articles that we do. There are two judgments which are very generic for elections, which I would like you to remember. One is Koto Holohan case. This case we discussed last time as well. This is very important for which area? No, this is for anti-defection. Like, what is anti-defection? Yes, exactly. So Koto Holohan has a lot of relevance over there, but Koto Holohan had a judgment also that free and fair election as part of the basic feature of the constitution as well. The second one is Havam Singh case. This is a relatively newer one, 2017, where it talks about that elections in India are a secular exercise, and if anybody appeals for vote in the name of caste, religion, gender, or so, then that will be considered as a corrupt practice. So these are the ready-made introduction conclusions you get for mains. Anything about elections, either court, either of these court judgments, and you are good to go. So Abhiram Singh case, this says that the elections in India should be a secular exercise, and it's a very sacred exercise. And if somebody is appealing in the name of caste, color, religion, or gender, then that would be considered as a corrupt practice. So that is also basically talking about free and fair election. There is no lobby and things like that. So these are like basically talking about the ethos of elections, very general things that you can use at a lot of places. So instead of just mentioning in introduction that free and fair elections should be the goal of India, mention these articles or mention the court judgments that would enrich your point. Before we move on to any particular topic, I'll try to, I think it's important for election because it has a lot of court judgments. We'll go through the court judgments one by one. But before that, there are like a couple of committees which are very important for elections. I just want you to note this down because like you'll have to make your framework for mains, that for any topic you'll have, for polity especially, you have articles, you have court judgments, you have committee recommendations, should be ready. So you do it once and all and done, and then traverse through the nitty-gritties and every theme of that particular topic. So for elections, we have a couple of committees. We have Bora committee. We have Gowami committee. We have Indrajit Gupta committee. Also in conclusions, but also when you are talking about any points as well. So if you're talking about criminalization of politics, because Bora committee says that there is a nexus between the politicians, the capitalists, and the criminals. So basically talks about the criminalization of politics. So that you can quote for Bora committee. Gowami committee talks about inner party democracy. So let's say ki you are talking about any point, and in which one of the point is ki the party structure has to be strengthened. You don't have any data for that. Like what data you'll have for inner party democracy? But you put a committee recommendation as a substance to it. So these are all the fodder materials for the general things that you know, but you do not have an institutional way to support that point. So it's not just only conclusion or introduction, but you can use it extensively in your points as well. Indrajit Gupta had a very remarkable recommendation for election funding. There are a couple of other as well. For Padmanabhiya committee had talked about criminalization of politics. There's also Tarkunde committee, which has also talked about free and fair elections. But this so do. And there's a very beautiful quote by Abraham Lincoln. He talks about that the ballot is always more powerful than bullet. Very profound statement. So this is also a ready-made quote that goes with any topic of election as well. When you talk about muscle power, criminalization of politics, lack of transparency elections. So this is also an important part. You should, like the goal in polity should be you do that with an article. But what also happens is that sometimes it looks very repetitive. You are introducing everything through an article. So if you have something better at least, so that there you could use something else, a quotation or a constitutional amendment or things like that, or judgment. But article is like without any thought you can start. Like very generic thing. आपको अगर राज्यसभा के बारे में कुछ है तो start article 80 at राज्यसभा and so forth. So especially for 2024, I would say कि for elections, what's very important is election funding and electoral bonds, because that was in news a lot. So everything, not just electoral bonds, but election funding in general as a topic becomes very important. Then second, since we had general elections this time, you could have how the voter turnout was there and what was the responsibility of Election Commission of India to increase the voter turnout and how the voter is response in the elections and changing and what grounds voters are giving vote. So about the voter behavior and voter awareness becomes one of the topics as well. Another one also becomes always a very favorite topic in GS mains is Representation of People Act, both 1950 and 1951. So I would advise to go through, in your smash notes also have a very detailed table of RPA, both 1950 and 1951 of all the sections. In 1951 there are section 5, which is first important, then 8 there's 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the 29 A, B, C becomes very important. So across all the important sections, go through and remember the specific sections because they come handy when you write answer for RPA, 1951 especially. And apart from that, there has been couple of times we have gotten questions about disqualification and qualifications and all, which are present not just in the RPA 1951. When you talk about disqualification, for a lot of MPs, we have a lot of things are covered in RPA 1951, section 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, similar to that. But we have a lot of other sections as well in RPA for that. There's also in Article 102 that also talks about the same. There are other conduct of election rules there are mentions. So disqualification and qualification is something that you should also be more thorough because repeatedly there has been question on this.
So how should we start in the RPA in lesson 81? So can we start with the RPA talk about the election procedure and the disqualification of the member, something like that? Or how do you put the introduction?
Under Article 327, Parliament has made law, which is Representation of People Act, that ensures free and fair elections. जो भी होगा topic, कि RP के under disqualification दिया है या फिर whatever. So I'll mention Article 327 because with that power, Parliament has made law, Representation of People Act, 1950 and 51. So I'll mention Article 327 and answer. Or if there is about any other way as well, like RP ke through they are trying to establish free and fair elections or how the disqualification works. So then maybe I'll quote Lily Thomas' case as my introduction. So depending on that, but if I have absolutely nothing that I can refer to and it's mostly about RPA, then I'll just quote Article 327. Other topics which becomes also very, very essential is about the party democracy and how the party works because, or form of government, because this time we have a coalition government in place. So that could be a question as well. After a decade, we moved from a single party getting majority to now a coalition one. So things around that could be a question as well. Keep an eye for that. And criminalization of politics also becomes very important. It's very quintessential question to talk about criminalization of politics and powers and limitations of ECI. And last year there was a judgment, Anu Barnwal versus Union of India case, where the Supreme Court told that since there is an absence of any actual law that governs how the election commissioner should be elected, so to fulfill that, there has to be a committee based on the CJI, like the Chief Justice of India, the leader of opposition, and the Prime Minister, and they form and choose the election commissioner. To which the Parliament did not comply, and not comply because the judiciary also said that since there is no law, but the Parliament made their own law by having a different model where they have this search committee as well, and the final selection committee on top of that, and the members in that does not include judiciary, but it includes leader of opposition, the Prime Minister, and one of the ministers appointed by the Prime Minister. And there are a few other topics that do hate speech, sedition, things around that. Since we had elections this time, so election becomes very, very important, and every topic becomes important. I personally don't think one nation, one election would be a point of contention this time, but having at least a brief overview of that also helps. I think we'll first talk about the electoral funding. As I said, one day we were discussing that you'll have to understand polity first. What is important is institutions. You have the constitutional grounds, and you have the policies, schemes, or any legislations. So when you have to think from a lens that what are the laws around it that has been made. So election funding ke around, what are the laws that govern that? The first obviously is the RPA 1951. The second that we have is Conduct of Election Rules 1961. We have the Income Tax Act as well. Section 182. And we have Companies Act. Companies Act Section 182. And this is Income Tax 1961. So these are the major laws that talks about election funding. And digressing from the point, the section 135 talks about Companies Act talks about CSR. CSR, last time we had a lot of questions. We had a question, I think on sociology, on ethics a lot of times. So like a small idea, 135 of Companies Act 2013 talks about CSR. So these are the laws that surround election funding, and few of that will go in a bit of detail, not in a lot, and tell ki what allows election funding, why is there a need of election funding and all, something that I would not digress. But the RPA provisions, three things which are important is that earlier under section, these are section, sorry. Under section 29, the law was if there is a higher amount than 20,000 in like could be given till 20,000 cash could be given to as a political party contribution. That has been now reduced to 2,000 so that we have more transparency in accounting and everything in cash. The second one, the 29B, talks about the voluntary contribution by any individual or any company. So both as a person or a company could give contributions to political parties except a government company. Government company won't be able to do that. Unconstitutional, right? Not illegal. There was a proper law on that. They can't say it illegal, but it is non-constitutional. Yes. So the electoral bond has been called as unconstitutional. Yes. Yeah. So electoral bond is a different concept. So electoral bond, the mechanism is different altogether. But I'm talking about the very foundation ki what allows the electoral funding in the place itself. So this is like when you have an electoral funding question, you could start with RPA section as well here. So 29C says that if there is a greater than 20,000 contribution from any party, be it individual company to a political party, and you have to provide this information to the income tax department, and you have to declare such contributions. And if any political party is failing to do so, then they will not get income tax exemption on that amount. So political parties get covered under the contributions get covered under IT exemption. But if they do not declare any contributions above 20,000, then they would not be exempt from the income tax exemptions. So these are more or less the ways in which it has been established that electoral funding has been done. And then electoral bond, which was present, but now it has been said unconstitutional. So I think you can get a question on electoral bond, but that is a separate topic that we'll have to discuss. But that is one of the mechanisms that has institutionalized electoral funding as well. But we'll have to discuss that what are the issues with electoral funding right now. Like for issues of electoral bonds, you'll have a separate idea. But in terms of electoral funding, still what are the gaps? What can you think about when somebody is funding to a political party? What are the issues with that? Yes. So if first we talk about how there is a nexus or lobbying that happens, which has been talked about at Bora committee. So when you talk about this, give a bracket में Bora committee लिख के. Nexus के बारे में he has talked about that same as well. But there's a very that we usually quote. There's a 255th Law Commission. Ensure that you remember this, like the LC's Law Commission, which talks about that ki electoral funding could lead to lobbying. These were the exact words: lobbying and capture of government. So this is point one. The second point being the tax evasion. Or the shell companies. Yeah? We'll discuss that as well. But basically, rerouting taxes money in a way, and we have shell companies. Uska data is key. At least there were 30 companies which were shell companies which had not donated, like contributed through the electoral bond scheme as well. And what happens is that there was a amendment earlier, before the 2017 or so. I can't recall, but the company should be at least 3 years old so that they can make any contribution. But that has been now removed. So that now has enhanced the formation of cell companies for electoral funding to the political parties as well. So because the greater than 3 years, so this is also one of the points that this is not being followed. So this is facilitating the electoral fund through shell companies as well. But these are mostly the same topic as well. The third one is, so there's a reformation, there's an amendment to the Companies Act where we have talked earlier there's a cap. Like when a company is donating, there has to be a cap how much they can donate, right? So earlier there was a cap that you can donate maximum to 7.5% of your aggregate profit of last 3 years. But now that has been removed, so loss-making companies can also donate. So this could be either for lobbying or making an excess or tax evasion, things like that as well. So this has been also removed. So this cap was a good way for avoiding a lot of nexus and lobbying as well. The fourth one is the problem of unknown sources. There's a famous organization, Association of Democratic Rights, which do a lot of work in elections, democracy, and everything in general. So they according to their data, around 71% of the electoral funding that as the political parties have got, these are from unknown sources. So this points out to the black money and lack of transparency in electoral funding and so on and so forth. So that's also one of the points. The first is allowing of foreign donations. So the FCRA Act has been amended that has allowed the foreign funding to the political parties. So there could be a lot of issues for that. Either that could be through a black money, tax evasion, or criminalization of politics could be increased. Like the foreign soil power could fund political parties or fund in a way so that could increase the criminalization of politics in general. So that is also one of the points. What else do you think? These are very technical things. These are the law, 7.5%, cell companies greater than 3 companies, 71% is unknown sources. Think very logically, like who gets the political funding? Political parties. But so parties get it. But in elections, independent candidates also fight, right? So this breaks up the level playing field. Because majority of these political funding goes to the major political parties. It to two ways it breaks the level playing field between national and regional and between original all or smaller parties, or parties versus independent candidates. So usually the smaller parties also do not get a huge share. It's always the larger known national and regional parties who get the lion's share. So that's a divide. And second, independent parties also get a disadvantage of it. And what else did we leave? And one point you could always add about everything about electoral bonds. The issues around electoral bonds was one of the issues as well. And there's another issue is that RTI and political party. So a lot of these political parties do not come under RTI. So the way they are spending the money, the reports for that, filing of that is not very transparent. So there is a lack of information dissemination, clouding of information. So that's also one of the issues with electoral funding.
So जो आर्टिकल वाला पॉइंट है वो यदि आप डेटा के फॉर्म लाएं रिफॉर्म करें कि वो क्या क्या होना चाहिए तो उस पॉइंट में आरटीआई को ट्रांसफर इसमें पॉलिटिकल पार्टी
Yes. So you make the solutions out of the issues itself. So these are the major issues with electoral funding right now. Few solutions for that, as just you mentioned, political party under RTI, that would increase the transparency of the entire electoral funding as well. We started with the committees. Very famous committee around this is Indrajit Gupta committee. Which talked about state electoral funding. That means the state or the government should sponsor the parties in a level playing field, and it's not neither the companies or the persons. So there's no lobbying, there's no nexus. So that is one of the solutions that has been given. This has been talked a lot by the Chief Election Commissioner, the body as well, that to bring them under RTI as well. We had the former election commissioners, T.S. Krishnamurthy and S.Y. Qureshi, who talks about National Electoral Fund. That means we create a fund. I mean, the nitty-gritties of it, they have a different structure, but it's basically saying that we have a separate fund for election funding, and from that fund itself, every party would be funded instead of now individual persons or companies providing it the same. Other solution could be that the expenditure cap has to be given on contributions. So how much one can contribute in terms of person as well as the company. The 7.5% is now no more valid. So that was one of the desirable activities. Plus, how much expenditure by political parties for elections, there has to be a cap on that. So now we know that for every constituency, for state legislative action or state legislative assembly election or the Lok Sabha election, we limit ki per constituency basis pe, be it through an independent or a political party candidate, a candidate maximum can give an expenditure. That is, there's a rule. But there's no rule ki how much a political party in general can provide their expenditure or like spend their expenditure as. So there has to be a cap on that as well, because it now limits only the individuals and candidates, but not the political parties for electoral expenditure.
Sir, आपको 2 point है expenditure जो आप बता रहे हो political party. Sir, ये आपको लगता है कि ये एक चीज के लिए वो बताने लगे कि हम इतना फंड रेज कर रहे हैं, तो कोई और अदर पार्टी इसकी जो कॉन्ट्रेरी होगी तो वो उससे ज्यादा करेगी, क्योंकि इनको पता लग गया कि वो 27 करोड़ पे कर रहे हैं एक पार्टी इलेक्शन के दौरान, तो मतलब कि लाइक फिर फेयर फेल होगा ना कि अब उनको पता है इंडिविजुअल को ये सीक्रेट बात होती है कि कोई भी अपनी लीक नहीं कर पाता, मतलब कोई भी पार्टी अपनी फंड को ये तो बोले कि हमने इतना फंड राइज किया.
That should be done. What I'm saying is कि आप लिमिट कर दो कि पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज कितना स्पेंड कर सकती हैं इलेक्शन, बिकॉज देयर इज नो वे, देयर इज अ लिमिट कि वो कितना करती हैं. एक देयर आर टू थिंग्स, वन इज टू एक्चुअली नो कितना स्पेंड होती है, द ट्रांसपेरेंसी इज नॉट देयर, एंड बी जितना भी स्पेंड होती है देयर हैज टू बी अ कैप ऑन द एक्सपेंडिचर. So it's not like if I tell if I publicly say party A, as party A I have spent 50 crores, so party B will tell I'll spend 51 crores. That provides a negative image to that as well. Rather I say कि वो 50 crores, like if somebody saying I'm spending 50 crores, then that will bring a transparency. How are they getting this 50 crores? Where are they spending this 50 crores? Whether is it through only election campaigning, stage and logistics and everything, or is it for other malpractices? So that transparency is first, and the second is ki why 50 crore? Why can't we limit it to one number which would be determined by certain calculations? So that is what was the point.
तो यही तो है कि कितना क्या वो पूरी फंड ली है उस पर्सन ने एक्सपर्ट, तो उसने कहीं वो क्रिमिनल ब्लैक मनी से तो लिया है या कहीं इलीगल सोर्स से तो लिया है, तो वैसे पता लग गया ना.
So but then RTI, like, see, at the mains you'll have to write a lot of points, even though like RTI is सब कुछ, like you can write this one point कि you political parties should be ethical, उससे तो like everything gets covered, right? But no, that's not how you write means. These are different points, there are different ideas, and under RTI a lot of other things come also. RTI could be also about कि how much expenditure was done at this particular function by the political party, or what was done for how did the internal elections happen, what is the job profile of the particular key holders. So RTI covers a lot of other things as well. No, there's a, I'm forgetting, I think Umesh Gupta committee who has talked about कि there is कि आप जो paid promotion करते हो on social media and everything, so that has to be get covered. I'm forgetting the committee name, but there was a committee on that as well. So there's Umesh Sinha committee, sorry. That talks about the social media promotion and paid promotion and things around that. There has to be a control over that as well. Then very other basic generalized solutions as well. Key digitalization, like now we have the 2000 cash, but do it for all. All the transactions to the contribution has to be digital so that there is more accuracy and transparency. These are the ones जो कि are very generic one, वो हर किसी में आप डालो. Technology, digitalization, involvement of civil society, NGOs. These are the frameworks where you add at every point, and you limit anonymous contributions. Foreign contribution control is also one of the solution. There has to be a cap on that or regulatory mechanisms on that as well.
तो उसके में यदि कोई एक पार्टी को बोल रही है, लाइक कॉन्ट्रेरी, जैसे अभी बीजेपी की पार्टी ने हमसे हाल में बोला था कुछ, तो वो किसी एक पर्टिकुलर कमेटी को कोलेक्ट कर रहा है, तो जो एक ऐसी जो बात चल रही है, जो न्यूज़ में भी ट्रैक में क्या वो बात को भी हाईलाइट कर सकते हैं, मतलब लिंग थोड़ा स्कीमा इससे
That is not electoral funding. We have to be relevant. कुछ नहीं इलेक्शन का कुछ भी डालो, that is not necessary. When I'm saying कि this is a generic point, digitalization is a generic point कि आप सारे transaction को digitalization कीजिए, you do social audits, bring more inner party democracy. These इनका actor है, but you cannot say कि hate speech कम कर दो. Like there is no relevance between hate speech and electoral funding. So do not stretch and overthink as well. Two best use cases, a global study like US and UK. What happens is in UK, a company cannot donate unless the shareholders of the company agree. All the shareholders agree that we donate to it. That's a good reform at UK. And US, they have a political action committee. Separate committee which looks after the entire electoral funding thing as well, in a more structured way. UK, it says that if all the shareholders do not agree for the funding, then the company cannot donate. And in US, there is a separate committee which looks after the entire electoral funding in the country. I'll talk about few of the election judgments which are very handy when you are answering about especially disqualification हो गया या फिर about eligibility हो गया या फिर criminalization of politics हो गया, and I would strongly advise to memorize them. So two we read. One is Abhiram Singh case. And the second we read Koto Holohan case. There is an article very good article on Indian Express, last one, which talked about Anukul Chandra Pradhan versus Union of India, which talked about that under trials have right to contest but don't have right to vote. You would have seen this time couple of people who are under trials or accused of something, they have won elections even. So, and they constitutionally and by the precedence of the court judgments, they are able to do the same, because you cannot vote but you can contest elections. Very important judgment by ये क्या I would advise कि don't give any name of any. I think the person that is saying he did not contest election. There are other ones who did. So, but his nephew does not have anything to do with him. But the thing is कि I would say कि don't, because even though you want to mention somebody else, they're MPs right now as well. So it's better to refrain from providing your own political ideology at any case. But if you're asking if you want to write Anukul Chandra Pradhan versus Union of India, yes, these are how the Supreme Court judgments or court judgments in general written. So this you can write. Anukul Chandra Pradhan is, you can write as a name. One more which is important is ADR versus Union of India. They have a lot of ones, but you can always note down the year. Now I do not have the year, but you'll have those in the smash notes as well. It says that the assets and liabilities plus the education, qualification and everything, that has to be filed in the affidavit of the candidate who are finding it. There's another election, like similar one, which is Lok Prahari versus Union of India. That talks about the source of your income or the assets has to be also mentioned. It's not just the number, but also have to mention the source as well. So again, a progressive step towards that. There's Public Interest Foundation versus Union of India case that talks about that parties have to release the criminal cases, right, of the people they are giving tickets to, and plus the reasons of it. Like, why is a party giving a candidate to somebody who has a criminal case attached to them as well? Very, very famous one. This was what number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Seventh one, Lily Thomas case, 2013, that talk about the RPA 1951 section 8.4. Somebody who is writing at least mains 2024 should be aware about this, because earlier it talked about how if any MP or MLA is accused of any court, of any charges, then earlier they had time for appeal, but now under Lily Thomas case, the court has pronounced that they immediately have to leave their seats. And if they are convicted for more than 2 years, then they will be debarred from elections for next 6 years, is the current practice. There's a Allahabad High Court case which talked about the caste-based rallies, that talked that caste-based rallies are unconstitutional and accounts for corrupt practices. Two things about the reforms, about electoral reforms. One is for VVPAT and one is for NOTA, the PUCL versus Union of India, that introduced the entire idea of NOTA. And we have Subramaniam Swamy versus Election Commission of India, that talks that VVPAT is extremely essential for free and fair elections to happen. Common Cause versus Union of India, that talks about the government ads. Ad as in advertisements. Should not be a hindrance to the free and fair election. So government funds should not be used as a way to advertise their political party. So this talked about that. There's another case by the Public Interest Fund versus Union of India, which was 2014. This is another case where it talked, like, the court said that for all the cases that is going for MPs and MLA, the courts should take a suo motu cognizance and solve those cases within 1 year. So these are, like, why I'm telling that you have to revise, because, for example, if you're getting one question on criminalization of politics and everything, or if you're getting a question on disqualification, or you're getting a question on the criminal charges, so write that solution mein the court is saying that we have to have other separate benches for people with criminal charges, so that those cases could be solved within an hour, as said in PIA versus Union of India 2014. So extensively use this at all of these questions that you get for elections as well. Uh, the 13, there is Resurgence India case that talks about the fact that if the returning officer who under whom you file your affidavit and everything, he can reject, you file a nomination. You can reject your nomination paper if anything in that election affidavit is missing. If you're missing about education, missing about your criminal history, court history and everything, so that could be rejected as well. And Anu Banwal we talked, but now does not have a lot of relevance because now we have a law, but good to remember, which talk about how ECI has to be elected. Two more, INC versus Institute of Social Welfare. So when you're talking inner party democracy, this is one of the good judgments where told that ECI cannot punish political parties if they are violating inner party democracy. You understand how can you use this judgment when if there is a limitation election commission also. You can put it that election commission does not have power to punish political parties if there's a lack of democratic parties. So you have the content, but mold it in a way in which you can either write about if there's a question inner party democracy, or if you have a question on election commission, or you have any question about issues about India's elections in general. So that you can use for a lot of these dimensions. Another we have Subramaniam Balaji versus State of Madras. That talks about that the Supreme Court has directed also the ECI, the Election Commission of India, that can frame some guidelines to check freebies. So freebies, you guys understand. So Election Commission there's a role of Election Commission also to understand if any policies are being done, and so they have the role to check the freebies as well. So these are around 16, 17, and couple of them in your smash notes as well. And each of them are very important that you can quote at multiple places, especially elections. You have a lot of cases from criminalization point of view, from party point of view, from Election Commission of India, the Anu Banwal case for their structure and judgment of selection. You have how is the role limitations in a party democracy, how you're checking the freebies. So there's one for MCC also, which is Harbans Singh Jalal case, which talked about how the MCC should look like, whether you should legalize it or not. That's also very, very important court judgment. So use this court judgment in a wise and versatile manner. I think we are done. I mean, elections is something that you have to memorize a lot of things in terms of what section of RPA is important, what other qualification, disqualifications, electoral bonds, especially for 2024. This is especially to actually understand what was the, maybe you can I'll take one more, I think 15-20 minutes to discuss what was the actual electoral bond case and what was the final judgment around that, and what is the status right now. We can take that as well. But for today, I think we can be done with this. But election give a lot of importance because we had a general election this year. So thank you everybody.